Okay, we're ready. Okay, we're ready.
All right, begin. All right.
Okay, I'd like to call this regular board meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. on September 15th, 2022. Can I get the Pledge of Allegiance? Is there a delay? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam President, should we have
Yes.
asked about public forum?
Sorry, yes. Anyone for public forum? Thank you.
We do have one individual who has signed up for public forum this evening, a middle school student, M. Watkins. I do not see them in the waiting room at this time, though Dr. Dietrich is here to support them as well.
Okay. Why don't we, can we get a motion to table and then come back when they're ready? Is everybody okay with that?
I don't believe you need to table. We can just go back. It's a
Okay.
public forum. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, on to study items, instruction change orders.
Okay, so here are the change orders for the month. We've got change orders 21, 22, and 23. Change order 21 is actually a rarity, at least in the course of our project. We actually have a credit of just about $29,000 due to some issues that arose in converting to our new electrical service. So I'll leave it at that. You can read the change order. So that is a credit of $28,900. And then change orders 22 related to unforeseen conditions, overtime premium, additional drainage work in the locker rooms. We felt that it would be a good idea to go ahead and swale the floors to the drains so that if water was in there, that actually went down the drain instead of pooling in the middle of the floor. So that was something that we weren't expecting. And additional excavation for soil remediation due to those fatty clays again. Then change order 23, additional classroom revisions. Remember that we moved some things around a little bit differently than originally designed with our math classrooms, high school math classrooms specifically. Premium time, overtime, which is overtime. And then additional work to satisfy our electrical code inspector who found some things that she wanted to be different. So we did that. We also had some power and data that we needed to move. Nothing too exciting this month.
Thank you. Annie's been kind enough to remind us that we didn't finish the process of approving the consent agenda, or did we?
The consent agenda, you asked for a motion to approve the agenda. That is the consent agenda.
No, I know. I'm saying, did we finish the process?
I have a
Believe so.
motion by Amber and a second by Katie, and I have it marked as unanimous.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, 302 transportation update.
Good evening. So I wanted to provide you guys with an update to our bus routes and our hazardous bus stops for this school year. Currently, we are running 4 buses in the morning for the ECC and elementary, and 3 buses in the morning for middle school and high school. In the afternoon, we have 4 buses for the ECC and elementary, and 2 buses provided by Husky for middle school and high school. The numbers on each bus range between 40 to 60 students on each bus. The numbers vary in the afternoon based on participation numbers and after-school activities, since elementary and ECC are now, and middle school are also participating in after-school activities now. We have 1 bus taking high school athletic teams to their events. And then in the afternoon, after bus drivers are finished with their afternoon routes, they circle back around to pick up student athletes. And I'm not sure. You guys, you see the routes, right? Okay.
By
So-
statute, we're required to approve these every year, which is why it feels like it's always a little bit in the weeds, but
Okay.
yeah, appreciate the level of detail here.
Okay. So that's it for my updates. If you guys have any questions.
Is
Is
this
this
different
different at all from last year? I see there's a lot of detail, but is there any changes at all?
The only change is we combined a couple routes, because some of the stops were like very, very close to each other. So we just kind of combined just to allow for the shortage of drivers right now. And then, so we put everything in Traversa. And right now, so that way our GPS can start working on the buses too, so parents can see where their students are based on their routes.
And are we getting a lot of usage out of that app? Do we know how many families are participating in it?
Not yet, because we are still updating the routes with students and matching the students to those routes. So it's kind of a tedious process right now, but we're getting them in.
Thank you. Any idea when that'll be fully up and running?
We should be done by tomorrow.
Okay.
We're on our last couple routes today.
Okay. Thank you. Does
Could
anyone
you
else have
be-
any?
One more, could you talk to me about the declared hazardous routes?
So those are the stops that our drivers feel are kind of dangerous for students getting to those stops based on the intersections and based on walking. Some of them are near Big Bend and some other like busy areas where there's a lot of traffic from cars during that time, especially in the afternoon. So we just went through and just tried to figure out where we may have some issues with, cars speeding and just busy times of the day when our students are getting off at those stops.
So do we move those stops, or is that just to make the bus drivers aware and the families aware?
Just to make the drivers and the families aware right now.
Thank you.
We'll also add that Maplewood actually is in the process of completing a traffic study, and they will also share that information with us as they have also identified hazardous stops as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, if we could go back to public forum and if Dr. Dietrich could come forward.
You're able
Hi,
to.
sorry, hold on one second. Ask if they can hear you. Can you guys hear Emma?
Yes.
We can.
Right.
We also need to elevate Dr. Dietrich as well.
Does he need to be elevated to a panelist?
He does.
Okay.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So thank you for having Em and I this evening. In 8th grade, students are currently studying the Constitution, specifically First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, and freedom to petition. Students discuss the role civic action plays in our society and how they as students can create change in their community. So I've been having conversations with M for about the last probably 3 to 4 weeks, as she has seen an issue that she thinks she can improve some things around school. And she asked if I could put her in contact with the board and Dr. Jameson. So I would like to introduce M to the Board of Education.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is I am a 8th grader of the MRH Middle School. I am honored to speak in front of the School Board of Education this evening. Coming out of COVID, MRH Middle School and teachers alike have felt not, sorry.
Sorry, guys. Give us just a second.
I'm sure you can imagine the nerves of one of our 8th graders coming in front of the Board of Education. So thank you for your patience.
I'm gonna, I'm Emma's father, Lee Watkins. I'm just gonna help her along and read, we'll kind of take turns reading lines, okay? So these are remarks that Emma is prepared to share with you guys. Coming out of COVID, students at MRH Middle School are eager to learn, but we're also eager to have some normalcy.
I am thankful for the students and teachers who have signed my petition. Dr. Dietrich has also helped me take the right steps to help teachers, students, and adults hear my voice. Dr. Dietrich has also helped me set up a meeting for Dr. Jameson in the next couple of weeks.
So Emma's purpose tonight is to inform the board of an active petition to provide students a day off after Halloween night. Our generation has been plagued with a pandemic and a lack of normalcy when it comes to events that should be enjoyed and celebrated with friends.
We do not just want a day off. I understand that we cannot just simply do that just for our own enjoyment. This petition also seeks to switch off the day off from October 28th to November 1st. This will not take away the learning and schoolwork provided with us throughout the school year. Currently, I have approximately 147 signatures, and I plan on doing an electric version to get more signatures within the next few weeks. Originally, I was advising just a day after Halloween because students like myself stay up too late, eating candy, and the next day after that day can be very difficult in terms of however, since starting this petition, I have learned that historically the attendance of students the day after Halloween is lower than the yearly average attendance. It seems that taking the day off November 1st actually will help our school as well as our students be able to pay attention as well as not miss any schoolwork. I plan to share this data more deeply and as well with Dr. Jameson when we meet. Thank you for allowing me students like me to speak and for you to consider my request.
I think you forgot one thing, that Dr. Maxwell and Dr. Dietrich also tend to have too much candy on Halloween night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Em. You did an amazing job.
Can I ask a question?
Madam President, may I speak? I know we typically don't after public forum, but can I
Yes,
say a
you
few
may.
words? So first of all, Em, thank you. We really appreciate you coming forward. We appreciate your leadership. We appreciate you being an advocate. We appreciate listening to what we're teaching at the middle school and using your voice for good. And I know it takes a lot of courage to come forward, especially on Zoom. It's tricky, and I think you did a great job. Thanks to Dad for helping her out as well. And I am a member of the calendar committee, and so I pledge to have a serious conversation with Dr. Jameson after your meeting with her to take a look at it and see if this is a possibility or not. But I promise you that we will actually consider it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question too? Is that possible?
Yeah.
I want to amplify and echo what Maria said. Absolutely. Great job. And I just have a clarifying question. I remember I have a seventh grader, and I remember he came home, I think 2 years ago from the elementary school, and mentioned that a similar petition had been circulated to leadership of that building. And I was just curious if you were part of that effort as well.
Was that last year?
Maybe it was I think it was 2 years ago, but it might have been last year.
Because there was a similar petition last year, but due to us not doing it like a month or two before that, we weren't allowed to do it because it was like the week of Halloween. So I planned on doing it like a month or just like at least more weeks in between to give the council and stuff more time to think over.
Thank you. I thought that was the case, and I just wanted to make sure that I call out too that persistence is really, and taking feedback when you got that initial no. I want to call that out too. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That is the way that the system is supposed to work. You continue on and continue on. So very, very proud. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Dr. Dietrich, for representing the school as well.
Yes.
And I too eat too much candy.
Okay, study item 303, COVID-19 mitigation measures.
Abby, I need ability to share screen.
Yes, ma'am, working on that.
Perfect. All right. As I always begin, we're still in a pandemic and our data reflects such. We are continuing to work to keep our community and our students safe. And the updates today will highlight and magnify some of the changes recommended by St. Louis County, as well as revisit the changes put in place by the CDC. So as was shared before, there have been a lot of changes with the level of data that's actually being shared. Currently, we in the past had received weekly reports from the St. Louis County Task Force, which included not only positivity rate, but inpatient bed utilization, hospitalizations, as well as transmission rates. So what you're seeing here is the data that was pulled from 9/13. So they are no longer sharing the trend data for previous weeks. And you can see where we are as it relates to COVID inpatient bed utilization and hospitalization. So currently we are at a medium community level for St. Louis County, and our cases per 100,000 is 126. This data is germane to similar data that was shared. It just shows what the percentage week over week change is, as well as what the community levels are for varying counties. Again, the community level rate currently is medium, with the transition rate for St. Louis County being at high levels. This is actually a new map. This map is different than what I typically report. It actually shows the varying municipalities together, and then also shows the case rates for the past 7 days, as well as the case counts for the past 7 days. And so while this data is actually lower than the previous month's report, it still reflects a slight increase from before. I also want to highlight here, we will continue to track our local case data. And you will see that when this data was pulled on September 13th, we had 3 cases at the ECC, 6 cases at the elementary school, and 6 cases at the middle and high school campus. As a reminder, since that campus is actually shared, we report the data as one site. The current data that exists is based on today's data. The ECC has 2 positive cases, the elementary school has 2 cases, and the middle and high school campus have 8 positive cases. So if you look at the staff cumulative cases for this school year, you will find that the data, again, when pulled on the 13th, is actually very different from the data that I pulled today. So the ECC for cumulative cases have 5. The number currently reflected as of today is 10 cases for the year. The elementary school has 11. The middle school has 19. The high school has 20, and our district total is now at 25 cases for district staff. I also want to.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jamison, that's all district staff across all buildings, or is that just non-building assigned staff?
That's all district staff. Thank you for asking. And I also want to highlight and thank Vince for pulling this data to look at historical data. So from the start of school to 9/30/2021, we only had 14 total cases. And so from August to 9/12/2022, or September 12th, we had a total of 80 cases. And so you can see the difference in the transmission level of the Omicron variant. So these are the St. Louis County updates that basically mirror the CDC changes. They updated the isolation requirements, again, 5 days on, and then students can return to school masked. They changed the quarantine recommendations for school exposure. And then the piece that I found interesting for the St. Louis County updates, which is very different from CDC, they strongly encourage providing metrics to monitor when considering masking. So community and transmission levels, multiple cases in a single classroom, and then in-school transmission. And the one that I thought was most critical, which highlights Dr. Ambers Phillips' point at a previous board meeting, monitoring school absence rates, not only for students, but also for staff. And so if we don't have staff in buildings and there's a shortage for substitutes, that can create a challenge for us. Here you see the CDC updates. This data was provided at a previous board meeting. And the information that is most pertinent, the test to stay being removed, no longer looking at cohorts of students, and then recommending conducting screenings, as well as ensuring information around when to wear a mask in case exposures and outbreaks. So our current mitigation measures that were provided was to suspend vaccination boosters, suspend mask mandate requirements, and transition to mask recommended. So I want to pause there for a moment, because a lot of the new guidance released by the CDC as well as St. Louis County make it very difficult for us to mandate masks, which leads to the second point, where we established our positivity rate threshold of 1.5%. And so ideally, the goal would be to continue with thresholds to ensure that the community remains safe, particularly as we think about the high transmission rate, as well as the increase in numbers. However, there is no leverage or support to do that from the new CDC guidance and the changes for St. Louis County. And we still work to try to keep distancing, as well as frequent hand washing and practicing routines as well. So you'll see those. So what administration is recommending is to keep all of the current mitigation measures per se, and the one that is probably most pertinent to discuss is transitioning to mask recommended, and I would say strongly recommended, regardless of vaccination status, based on a high community and transmission level. So the shift here is not mandating, but more or less recommended, because again, the CDC guidance in St. Louis County does not really offer the ability to do that. And we've had conversations about this in our St. Louis County task force meetings. And at this point, no district is mandating masks, because there really isn't support to do such. And then you'll see the shift to reinstate a visitation of non-essential visitors into the building. I do want to highlight the district nurses. They continue to be diligent around their practice. So they are still contact tracing where appropriate, and also notifying families if they are in close contact, and as well as continuing to collect data so that we're able to update our dashboard. And we are continuing to offer clinics and vaccines and boosters. And we are in the process of actually partnering with the Maplewood Police Department to set up another vaccination clinic. And we have internally scheduled flu clinics. Thank you, Vince, for that, so that our staff can become vaccinated for the flu. We continue to have PPP and masks and supplies in all buildings for students who choose to wear masks, and reminding parents through our weekly newsletters and also through principals updates to screen, and if children are ill or if staff are ill, for them to stay home so that we don't have transmission in schools. And I've already mentioned notification of caregivers if a child is exposed in a classroom or within a club or sporting activity. So that is the COVID update. The recommendation at this point would be to approve the mitigation measures as presented. And at this time, I welcome any questions you may have.
Dr. Jameson, this obviously changes the way that we talk about masking and alert families to community spread and levels of transmission. How do we plan to make our families aware of when rates are high and we do strongly urge masking?
So we will continue to use our current platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, as well as our weekly updates. Vince does a great job of providing language, consistent language to all of the building administrators to include in their updates that go out. And we will continue to update our dashboard for our community. So none of the new guidance says that we have to continue, but I think for transparency purposes and to allow our community to know what our rates look like within the buildings, it's only fair to continue to share that information. Vince, are there other things that I may be omitting?
I don't think so. I mean, it's been such an interesting journey, but I think we're one of the very few districts that are still having a dashboard and doing classroom notifications, but we feel like that's time well spent. We have a great community and the families appreciate getting a heads up, even though there's no more quarantine, et cetera, but it does give us a chance to provide those families guidance about how to monitor symptoms and consider masking. And we talk about this every week on our Monday district leadership meeting. And so I think if we saw any increases in numbers in a particular classroom or building, we would probably message some clear language about recommending masks, falling short of requiring them. But we feel good about our communication efforts. I'm really proud to work with the nurses. They do such a fantastic job. But to Dr. Jameson's point, we have 4 times the rate we had this time last September. But last September we were all masking and we were fresh off our vaccination, so we were all, feeling pretty good pre-Omicron for sure. But people are, we're managing. It's good.
I will also say the home testing kits that we receive, those have been quite beneficial. So if a student is displaying symptoms, the nurses are sending those homes with students as well as for their parents. So that has been beneficial for us as a district.
As you may, so for those of you on the board that are parents, you probably know that the algorithm has changed and is much more family friendly in terms of really managing symptoms. We were able to provide free tests, and we ordered some more from the state, and I hope they come. I think Katie has her hand up.
Yeah, I have 2 questions, maybe for consideration. Can you explain what a non-essential visitor is and kind of what that reinstating visitation of non-essential visitors means?
Thank you. So it would mean that we would allow parents to enter the building with precaution. And a lot of that came through, and I think I got a lot of positive feedback when especially the ECC parents were able to walk their littles in. And for me, honestly, it was a joyous moment, would say, to see families share in the excitement of seeing tears when they were present, but also the building, because they have not had an opportunity. The other pieces around events like museum night and being strategic about how we invite parents in, but we do want to create some normalcy in a safe way, but also ensure that parents are able to engage. We have not yet had conversation about consistent volunteers in the building. That's one of the items that I will bring forward in our next cabinet meeting to discuss, because there will be, dependent on the level of volunteerism, especially at the elementary school, we have some volunteers who stay for a long period of time, whether that's in a classroom or in the library. So really talking about what that looks like and messaging that out to our families. And if we do get to a point where we feel comfortable with that, we also will have to support them in background checks and things like that.
Great. My other question was just around, has there been any conversation about incentivizing staff to get the updated boosters? I wonder if there is just some sort of token of appreciation that might be offered for folks. It sounds like those new formulas are fairly effective in combating the new strains. And obviously we've talked already about the potential for challenges to our teaching staff if infections increase.
So we have not had conversations yet to incentivize, but that's something we can add to our agenda for Monday.
I love that. And I also, want to amplify that point too for families who may be listening, especially families who may be more cautious. Those new vaccines are available. They are free. You can get them, and when you all have that clinic, that's great. But if families are wanting to be protected sooner than that, Walgreens, CVS, they're scheduling appointments and people can go get those for free.
Do we have other questions, comments? I'm going to take over leading the meeting while our president steps away to manage her electrical issues at home. So then we'll go ahead and move on to 3.04 Board Policy Batch 2022A.
Awesome. That would be me again. So as we're aware, school boards have the responsibility of adopting and enforcing policies, and frequently with changes in laws, MSBA recommends new policies to be brought forward. So tonight I am bringing forward 5 policies, one for lactation. This particular policy basically mandates districts to have lactation rooms in school buildings. The room has to have the ability to lock. They ideally would like to have a sink in each of the rooms. It's not required, but it has to be close to a refrigerator or a running source of water. Currently, all 3 of our campuses have lactation rooms and meet these requirements. And the one at the middle and high school is the newest, and it's actually pretty slick. So check it out if you get a chance to go by. The next policy is employee leave. And so this particular policy is a new policy in that for certified or professional staff, as well as support staff, have an opportunity to utilize leave for domestic and sexual violence. And so that is a new one that's being brought forward. And then we have 2 policies. One is around corporal punishment. And so this one is actually being revised, and In the revision, it is removing the language around isolation, which ties to policy JGGA. And policy JGGA really talks about isolation and corporal punishment, but removes the word for self-defense. And so the policy previously said that teachers or staff members could use corporal punishment or restraint if it's in self-defense, but that has since been removed. The new policy also includes language around PBIS and developing behavior intervention plans for students who may need additional support, which is exciting because it aligns to the work that we're doing currently with our multi-tiered systems of support. These items are coming today as a study item and will be coming back next month for approval. At this time, I welcome any questions you may have.
Can you spell out that PBIS acronym for me, please?
Thank you. Educators are horrible, positive behavior intervention supports.
Thank you.
I do have a question about policy GCBDA. Do we have a confidential way for staff to request that leave that protects their privacy in those circumstances?
So they actually are providing the notice and forms that we can use. So I think last year we started adopting procedures and using the forms that have been provided through MSBA. So that information is being provided. And once we review that, if we want to make modifications or changes, we're able to do that as well.
Other questions? All right, so we'll be voting on those in a future meeting. Let's move on to admin communications 4.01 program evaluation with Dr. Bouchard.
Thank you. And I can just arrow over. Hi, thank you so much. I've taken over Dr. McKee's office. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a few things about federal programs with the school board. So we wanted to give you all sort of an overview of what federal programs is and how. Thanks. One finger. Okay, sorry. I am a Windows person, so I'm struggling a little bit with Mac. Okay, getting a little tutoring lesson. So basically, giving you kind of an overview, letting you all know where the budget stands and where the program has sort of landed from the last year or so, and then additionally some future goals. So basically, what this current program evaluation is covering is Title I, II, and IV. Those funding streams provide supplementary supports to increase academic achievement for students. We currently funnel that money into the MRH Elementary and the MRH ECC buildings. And those funds also are portioned out to our non-public institute and neglected institutions that lie within our boundaries. Last year, we spent money on staff mostly, instructional coaches and some reading specialists. We also did some training with Wilson language and letters training. Those are both reading, foundational reading trainings that we were doing. We also spent some money on supplies for some of those programs for Wilson, as well as some of the funds were spent on MySci, which is a science program, a hands-on science program, and some technology for students to better access curriculum. Budgetary information kind of divides it out into Title I, II, and IV. I don't want to dig down into the weeds too much, but I try to kind of spell out what each of the funding allocations were, what our total expenditures were, and then what the change in funding looks like a little bit. I can tell you from my past experience, last several years, the total Title I funds have slowly decreased bit by bit. So those are some things that we definitely want to look at, the free and reduced paperwork and things like that that parents fill out, making sure those get filled out, and also looking at our poverty census rates in this area in order to, which is one of the calculations that DESE uses to calculate those funds. So So those are just some of the changes with the budget and the allocations upcoming for this coming school year that we have. What we're looking at for this into the future is that we're continuing to review all of the budgets and expenditures that we have been utilizing over the last several years, and making sure that we're leveraging all of those funds in really good ways to make sure that we're maximizing student supports and also sustainability of programs. If funding dips down, we don't want to have to cut programs. So we want to kind of make sure that we're funding things that we can sustain. Again, like I said before, we're kind of monitoring all those free and reduced application, the submission processes, which I know Taryn's been working very hard on, and also just getting families to fill out forms and making sure that our current rates on paper are accurate with our families and the needs are met with our families. The third goal that we're looking at for this year is developing processes to ensure efficient drawdowns of funds between the coordinator, the finance department, the non-public, and the neglected institutions. That's kind of just a goal for me to make sure that I've partnered with all of the people that I need to partner with, and to make sure that we're getting a steady stream of money, drawing it down appropriately as the state expects, and of course, as Chris likes to have the money coming in and not going out. And then finally, revising the program evaluations in the future to really kind of give the board maybe a bigger picture of all of the grants and funding that we manage and have coming in, not just the federal programs ones, but all of the other grants that we have coming into the district, and doing the same kind of evaluation of those programs as we go forward. And are there any questions?
No questions? I think I have a quick one. How are we doing on our free and reduced lunch application submissions?
So I do not have an answer to that question at this moment. I can tell you that Taryn's department has been working feverishly on making sure the electronic and the paper forms are getting submitted. But we're hoping to probably touch base here at the end of the month to kind of coordinate what we've got. If anybody else has that number, please jump in. But I have not been able to check in with Taryn at this point.
I could maybe add some information. So we're working with a retired registrar, Ms. Johnson, who's been helping us catch up on getting the applications in. So to date, so we've had, we have approximately 200 students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch through a direct certification process. So that information's in Mosaic Services. We have processed all the paper applications that have been submitted. So we're playing some catch up, but they're all submitted. We send out letters, and Taryn helped us with his report that helped us do that. We sent letters out to the eligibility letters out to the families this week. And Ms. Johnson's coming in tomorrow to send letters to the people who are on temporary status, which means they're currently qualified for free and reduced, but are about to expire. So we're going to work hard on getting those out. And then we're going to do another mass kind of call to get people to apply. It is easy, since this is a public forum, it is easy to apply online through My School Apps off the website. Sometimes families don't qualify, but it really is helpful just to get more applications in. If you don't qualify, it's really easy. You can check a box and kind of move right past it and be done in less than 5 minutes. It's helpful for us to know. The district's never, I'm not aware of any baseline on application completion that we have. I don't have data on that. We have free and reduced lunch number data, but not like application completion data. I'd say right now we've had about 45% of our students have submitted applications for the year. I have no way of knowing if that's a good number or a bad number, but that's about where we're at. The silver lining is Taryn and myself and Chris and a bunch of us will know a lot more about food service applications with this new system than we did before. We had a previous food service manager that was terrific, but a lot of that information was with her. And so we've now collectively know a lot more about this. I mean, Taryn ran a great report. Chris has helped with point of sale. There's about 6 of us that know a little bit about this now. So we're about a 45% completion rate on applications. And we're up to date. I did some stuff tonight before the board meeting, so I think we're all caught up and going to make another push. And thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And it does sound like we're meeting the needs of all the students who we've been able to identify, but I will put another push in. It is so easy to fill it out speaking from the parent perspective, having that migrate online 2 years ago was really a game changer. So I think it's important for us to keep promoting how easy that is. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bouchard. We'll go ahead and move on to 4.02, our summer school review with Dr. Maxwell. He's here and can be promoted. There we go.
Hello, good evening. I want to first thank you for letting me come and present our so thank you, Madam President, members of the board, administration, Dr. Jameson, and all community members. As I'm getting ready to share my screen, I just want to give a quick kind of some thank yous to several of the people that really made this program a success. So I really want to thank the administration. So the principals, assistant principals definitely supported in the planning. Also, Rachel was wonderful about helping us set up attendance, Power School, and many of the behind the scenes support. And definitely want to thank Chris for all his work with budgeting as well too. And sorry, I'm going to continue to share my screen in the right way too. So definitely had a lot of support that really helped make this program a success. So Ben Gleason definitely provided a lot of support with the SSD programs and the partnership that we had there. Vince, great support with getting our nurses and that programming going. And then big shout out to our teachers, just their time and energy extending the school year after a long school year. The custodians, bus drivers, food service, providing all the support for our students. The secretaries, nurses, great support to help make sure our program ran smoothly. And definitely all of the families that entrusted us with their children for our summer program. So like to just give a quick update on our current goals. Our first goal was to differentiate programs for students at different levels and with varying needs and be flexible to the needs of our students. So we felt like we did accomplish that for all of our programs. We also wanted to build on the continuity of using MRH staff. We just know those relationships that our staff has with the students definitely helps to make for a strong program. And we felt like we did accomplish that for our kindergarten through 8th grade academies and for summer enrichment. We also wanted to provide more equitable programming for all students at all levels. And we did feel like we accomplished that in several different ways. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're remaining fiscally responsible with our summer school programming. And we made some improvements with that, but we also want to continue to look at areas that we can improve that. To kind of then jump from that into our budget review. As you can see for 2022 program, our revenue was just right around 58,000. Our expenses were just over 61,000. And so that gave us a overall cost to the district of just over 3,000. So as you can see, we made some improvements in how much it did cost the district, but we also feel like there are some areas that we can grow in that. Our summer school program enrollment, we are happy to continue to get back to what I think we have seen in the past. 2020 was our pandemic year, so enrollment was definitely different for that year. 2021 was us coming out of the pandemic, and we weren't able to offer as much programming as we have in the past. Where this year, I feel like we were able to continue to grow what we were able to offer, which provides opportunities, more opportunities for our students and families. Some of the performance areas that we take a look at, one of the big ones is with our high school credits earned. So this is both for our credit recovery and credit acquisition. And so for this year, we had a big improvement in just how many credits our students were able to earn throughout the summer. I think a lot of that goes to some of our changing of our programming and using the virtual learning platform of Launch through the Springfield Public Schools. That gave a lot more flexibility to our students for when they could access their learning and for how long they could. So for our credit recovery students, they actually had until the end of July to finish their programs. And so we had a lot of students that continue to work on their courses outside of even just our summer school time. And so I think that was gave them the opportunity and some flexibility to continue to earn credits. We're also able to use Launch for 2 courses, personal finance and PE. And so we had a lot of students that took advantage of getting some credit acquisition with those 2 courses. We did send out some surveys to some of our summer enrichment families to get some feedback from what they felt about our program. And so we saw some positive feedback from our families talking about just what their child had learned in summer enrichment and how much they felt like it did help prevent some of that learning loss. We also surveyed our students in our summer enrichment program to get their feedback on that too. And again, we saw some very positive results from our students about what they learned in summer enrichment and that they were able to practice some of their skills during our summer enrichment program. So the conclusion, some of the overall conclusions from our summer program is first that we are happy to see that enrollment has increased in 2022. We hope to continue to do more of that in 2023. Also saw that positive increase in credits that were earned by our high school students through the Launch program. And then our summer school surveys also, as I just said, demonstrated some appreciation for the opportunities, felt like their child benefited from the program, and the students felt like they were able to practice their skills during the summer school program. And looking at just the results from our summer academy, we did see an increase in performance in both math and reading across the board. So that was, we were pleased to see that, our short summer school program did increase some of the skills that our students had. We did see that attendance had varied by grade level, and we also saw that there was still the impact of COVID cases on our overall attendance with that. So looking to next year, planning is already getting underway. And so these are our proposed goals for our 2023 planning. So by second semester, we want to develop some procedures for initializing, planning, and carrying out summer school to make sure that we really embed this into just what we do here at MRH. Also, by a second semester, we do want to investigate and develop a proposal to implement summer school methods and/or resources that either profit the district or break even with expenditures. So again, being smart with our money, we do feel like there's some ways that we can adjust some of our programming so that we can at least break even with our district funds. And then finally, we want to make sure that we continue to collaborate with MRH High School building leader on the credit acquisition and credit recovery so that we can, continue to support our students to make sure that everyone is on track for graduation. And that is the end of my report, but I'm open for any questions or comments.
I think Annie has a hand up.
Thank you, Dr. Maxwell. This is lovely. I really appreciate hearing about this a little bit more. I heard you say on slide 2 that we felt we were successful at providing more equitable programming for all students at all levels, and it sounded like you had a couple specific proof points on that one that you could point to. I was wondering if you could share some of that with us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And again, working with both Chris and Rachel, we were able to offer free programming for all students. And so that was something that was really important to make sure that all students had the opportunity to participate in any of our summer school programming, and that making sure that, financial situation was not a barrier to that. We also were able to provide free breakfast and free lunch for all of our students. And so I think that really, helped kind of just overall support our students throughout the summer school day.
The funds that were used to provide, to underwrite that though, will those be available to us in the future?
That we will have to look at differently. We did use some of our ESSER funds for that. And so I know that, we'll be looking at how we can continue to do that. That will have to be part of our overall just budget planning, because we would like to continue to provide some of that. And so if that's going to be something that the district will have to occur, then, again, we want to make sure that we do work that into our planning so that we can hopefully continue to do that in the future.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Maxwell, I just want to say thank you for doing this. I know a few parents whose students were in the program and they truly appreciate it. And I love the language that you are using and the school district is using as far as summer enrichment. Summer Academy. I think that's more of an uplifting, positive note. Summer school just seemed like so negative. So I think as we move forward, just think about the language as we're making changes, because I think it's more positive outlook when we use different wording. So I thank you for that.
Thank you for the feedback.
I have one more question if I can. I just wanted to kind of connect the dots between, I think I'm understanding this correctly, but I just want to make sure. When you said item 2 on slide 2, building on the continuity of using MRH staff, and you said you accomplished that for K-8 Academy and summer enrichment. And then on slide 9, when you said the goal for next year is to collaborate with high school building leadership, is that, am I correctly connecting those two things, that you want to be able to deliver these programs with the MRH staff? That's the difference we're trying for?
Yes, we would like to. So that's kind of part of that new goal is, trying to find ways to have our staff. And so some of the kind of areas that we ran into was getting staff with the right certification. So we had some of our high school staff that had similar certification. And so we didn't use all the ones that we had, but we also then needed to reach outside of the district to get some of the staff that we didn't have for different areas of certification. So yes, that's definitely part of that.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank you, though, for leveraging the launch platform, because I think that was very effective in opening up greater access to our high school students, especially around the acquisition. I think that was a really flexible way to approach it that allowed more students to participate.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to see how many students took advantage of that.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Maxwell. We appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you, and have a good evening.
You as well. We'll go ahead and move on to 4.03, our construction update with Randy Charles.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I took my computer was a little delayed. First of all, I'll try to make it quick this evening, but I do want to take a minute just to give special recognition, public recognition of a lot of people that made it possible for students to return to school on time. I want to start with your teaching staff, your principals. I mean, there were some instructional spaces that quite honestly weren't totally finished when the teachers returned. Rather than have several days to prepare their spaces, some of them had 1 or 2 days, and they pulled it off. So kudos to your staff for their flexibility, their hard work, to the principals as well, Dr. Dietrich and Dr. Grauer for helping coordinate all that. Also a big shout out to Ms. Sharp, the building and ground staff, the food service staff with Chartwells for preparing those spaces. Again, construction workers were in those areas right to the last minute, and your building and grounds crew, your food service crew, they had to come into those spaces, and I guess I describe it as making school clean. There's a difference between construction clean and school clean, and they put in a lot of hours, some evenings, overnights, weekends. They got the spaces ready. So kudos to Ms. Sharp and her team. As always, Mr. Holzer has been instrumental in all this, and really as a go-between between the construction folks, the school staff, and coming up with ideas and where can we gain some time here? How can we make this work? Make that work? So it's been, he's been very helpful. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our beloved superintendent, Dr. Jamison, who jumped right in with both feet about a week before school started. And I shall just say, helped us emphasize to our contractor the importance of things being done on time and being done well. Not every superintendent that I've worked with is so willing to do that, but she jumped right in, rolled up her sleeves, and I do know that it made a difference. So thank you to for your help. I'll just simply say that, hey, the building's coming along really well now. The cafeteria, you may remember there are a couple of meeting rooms off the cafeteria. Those are almost finished. The teen kitchen and wow areas just off the north edge of the cafeteria, I believe those are supposed to be ready for us next week. Appliances were delivered today. They're being installed today and tomorrow, inspection on Monday. So as soon as Ms. Sharp's crew gets that school clean, Mr. Dietrich and Dr. Grauer can begin using those spaces, hopefully next week. The middle school vestibule, basically the entrance to the new middle school office space. You're going to see a lot of work there next week, closing in that vestibule. We will probably see it enclosed by the end of the month. The exterior won't be complete, but they'll close it down, have it enclosed to the point that the interior will be done. They can finish that off, and it's going to look more like an entrance in just the next few weeks. You may have heard already, the locker rooms are complete, and actually students are using those, particularly for volleyball games and so on. The media center, library, there's a little bit of work needs to be done on the reading nooks. There's a little bit of shelving, casework, and the makerspace needs to be done. We're waiting on that shelving to be constructed. We don't have a firm timeline, but we're looking probably at the end of the month for that. Probably the longest wait we're going to have is on the shelving for the library books and periodicals and so on. We had intended to reuse the existing shelving that was stored during construction, and the heavy flood rains this summer infiltrated those storage areas and damaged the shelving. So I believe, Mr. Holzer, I think you've approved the order now, haven't you, for that shelving?
We got final field measuring done by Color Art today, so we should have finalized quotes tomorrow or early next week to submit for order.
Yeah, and I believe the last they told us there was about a 12 to 14 week lead time on that. So our librarian has just been super flexible. Whatever we talk to her about, she responds with a smile and she makes it work. So again, that really helps things, but it'll probably be December-ish, I'm guessing, before that shelving is in place. The toilet renovations, the new toilets, and then renovation of what we're calling the East Stack, those should be fully 100% complete by the end of this month. So that's good news. And I should mention the gym lobby. You're going to see a lot of work on that again. That gym lobby, which will become the new entrance to the gymnasium area, will probably be finished around December. We're not real sure, though, that we'll even be able to use it as far as an exterior entrance for, say, basketball season. It'll have a lot to do with the status of work in the courtyard itself, whether people can actually traverse from Lohmeyer through the courtyard and through the new gym lobby. We'll keep you posted on that, but that's still in the works as well. I know Chris is going to share with you a video, and you're probably more interested in seeing that, but I will mention where we are in terms of numbers. We have made payments of just over 11.5 million, keeping in mind that with change orders and so on, this is about a $19.9 million project. So we're about 61% complete, and we have allocated about 74% of identified contingency funds. I'll repeat those numbers. We're about 61% complete, but we've used about 74% of our identified contingency funds. As the dust settles a little bit from getting school open and finishing up these summer projects, I think we'll not only begin to, we are already talking about how to gain some schedule to make sure we get building A open on time August of next year, but we also need to talk about where we think we're going to be in terms of funding. Will additional funds be necessary? Are there places where we can save money, and so on? So those will probably be the two areas of focus in the next several weeks to really talk about schedule and then kind of estimate overall pricing. So I will leave it at that at this point. I'd be happy to respond to any questions or comments you might have.
Randy, do you expect, as you say, these are the conversations you'll be having over the coming month, to come back to us at our next meeting and have a better sense of where we might gain back time or look at cost cutting? How long do you expect that process to take to identify those opportunities?
Well, it'll be an ongoing process. The real determining factor for us is going to be the weather this winter. Cold weather will slow everything down. For example, when they start to set the block walls, they set brick. If the weather is below freezing, they have to take special precautions with the grout they're using. And that's just one example. The cold weather slows everything down. So we can give you an update, and we will give you updates regularly, but it's very fluid, it's very dynamic. I think what I will begin to do in our construction updates that I send to you weekly is to kind of identify my best guess at where I think we're going to be in terms of necessary contingency funds, and also give you best guess or best estimate as to where we are in terms of schedule. Those are best guesses. Obviously, the further out we go, the more accurate we can be with them. But we'll give you dates consistently, but no, they're very, very fluid. If you know any good weathermen that could influence the weather, or weather ladies, please get their help.
We'll work on that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Randy. I think those of us who've been able to be in the building since school started have been really gratified to see how students are engaging with the spaces, and the improvements to the cafeteria and to the bathrooms are very welcome changes, I know, at the high school and middle school. So thanks for everyone's hard work on that. Okay, Chris, I think you've got a video for us as item 4.04.
Sure. Ed Rich does a great job of chronicling the construction activity. Give me a second while I get it queued up and shared. All right, can everyone see that? No, you can't. Now you can.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, let me mute my mic and get on with this. The crane's name is Cliff, by the way. This is a pivotal part of the project. Nothing can move forward on building A until the concrete folks are done setting forms and pouring foundations and footings. So once that's done, the crane can drive out of the hole and we can start moving forward with the other trades. The team kitchen is now fully painted. All the casework and cabinetry is installed. Appliances are delivered and awaiting installation. So this looks a lot different today than it did when Ed filmed this video. This is still a work in progress, admittedly. It is now dry, though. There's new math classrooms. These were formerly middle school spaces that we've converted to high school math. The whole department is now on the west side of the 4th floor. Ryan being one of our math teachers. There's Wags, one of our SSD teachers. This was formerly Amy Kruger's room. We didn't have to do anything to this room other than move Cheryl's furniture into it, and also Miss Carmen. I will say that this is the highlight. Our students love this space. Our idea here was to create a college or university student union vibe, and it seems as though we've accomplished that. The students are very much enjoying it and are very appreciative as well. We do have a few temporary tables while we await the real ones. That is a bell from our new intercom system as well, by the way. Okay, there you go. Any questions?
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate getting that update.
My pleasure.
We will move on to Vince with an enrollment update.
Hey, good evening, everyone. If I could, Abby, if I can get a chance to share my screen, that'd be fantastic.
You should be able to, but let me
Okay.
know if you have any difficulties.
All right. No, I don't have any difficulties. I mean, I have difficulty, but not difficulty sharing my screen. All right. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, good evening, Board of Education and Maple Ridge Nice community. This is just, kind of a brief presentation on our enrollment numbers. First thing I wanted to share is I pulled these numbers on September 9th. Important to pull out that our official district enrollment is captured on the last Wednesday of September, which this year will be September 28th. So we are a bit of ways from our official enrollment count. So I will bring the official numbers back to the next board meeting so you have those, or I can drop them into board notes, whatever is more appropriate. But we don't expect a lot of change, a lot of variance. Typically when we present the preliminary numbers in mid-September to give you kind of a sense of where we're at, they don't change a whole lot. So they're pretty close, I would say.
Vince, can I interrupt just a minute? We're looking at presenter view right now.
Oh, how about this?
And those of us with bad eyes, there we go. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
No one's got bad eye. Is that better?
Yes, that's perfect.
Thanks for the tip, Amber. So this gives, I always look at historical perspective and see where we're at because it helps to know where we've come with enrollment. I mean, overall, from a macro lens, we still have had steady increase overall when you think about the last 15 years. I mean, the preschool was a huge increase. We've added classrooms. Overall increase of 35% enrollment since 2006. But having said that, always doing a deeper dive in the numbers, we had 12 years of steady growth, but we've now had 3 years of some decline. Overall decline of 3.9%, beginning with, guess what, the pandemic. And so we've had, so in 2000, as you can see, our high water mark was 2019-20, the year the pandemic hit that spring. And we've had some decline since, again, about 3.9%. So it's important to point out. Just the other thing I like to always point out is on 2017-18, those numbers are skewed a bit because that's when we moved our second grade over from the elementary school to the ECC. That kind of represents that bit of a jump there. Okay, so that kind of gives us some enrollment trend numbers. Grade level analysis. Now this is helpful just to explain what this is. This is like this year's kindergarten class versus last year's kindergarten class. There is variance in the cohorts, so this doesn't really tell a story necessarily about losses of kids per se, but it does kind of give you a sense of cohort sizes. It does help with some planning pieces. So, again, that's like a 1.5% overall change from a cohort sizes from the previous year, which kind of aligns with the 3.9% decline in the last 3 years. So that's a grade level analysis, and it helps with some planning. And then the cohort analysis, this is what I find more interesting, is looking at, has there been any dramatic changes within a cohort? So for example, so let me explain, so that the cohort, when it says first grade, so that's our current first graders. So last year when they were kindergartners, there were 116. And this year that same cohort had 118, so they've added 2 kids. That's kind of how to read that, those lines. So the 12th grade group currently has 83. Last year's juniors, there were 88. It's always been kind of a small cohort, so a loss of about 5 students. Overall, a decline of 28 kids within the cohorts, which is about a 2% decrease, which kind of lines up with our overall numbers. So nothing stood out. We didn't see any great decline in a particular age group. So that's kind of the cohort analysis in terms of our numbers so far. What I wanted to share is thank you, Katie Kaufman, for sending the article from the Post-Dispatch. First of all, thank you for reading the Post-Dispatch. I'm a faithful subscriber, but I missed that article, so thanks for catching that. She sent me an article, and I can share it. I'll drop it into the board notes so you can see it. That really talked about this trend. So this is what we've experienced the last 3 years, appears to be consistent with a downward trend regionally and statewide. Nearly every district in the St. Louis region has had a decline in enrollment. There were 6 districts and/or charter schools that had a 10% plus decline in enrollment. Ours is at 3.9%. There's only 2 schools that had an increase, pretty modest, 1%. So only 2 of the many schools in this region had an increase. So it does seem to be, and it does align with the pandemic. We didn't see any, the charter schools have had a decline, so the students aren't leaving for them. And the Archdiocese of St. Louis has reported a decline. They've lost 20,000 students since the year 2000. So not, what I'd like to do is do a bit of a deeper dive and to see where our kiddos transferred to and present that to you. So my goal next month, either in a board meeting or in board notes, whatever Dr. Jameson would like me to do, whatever you would prefer, I'd like to do a deeper dive on where the transfers were. I would also like to share with you the official numbers for our official count for the year. And perhaps begin, if I have time, to do maybe some exit surveys with some families to kind of see why they may have made some different choices. Maybe a Google survey, way to do that kind of that's easy for them. So I'd like to do those 3 things in preparation for next month's meeting. I did take a little bit of time to do a quick analysis because Taryn showed me how to run a report on our data system. So I did do a quick analysis on our free and reduced lunch numbers since that came up earlier. So right now we're at about 30.6% for free and reduced lunch availability. That does include the 100 applications that are getting ready to expire. And those are currently people who are eligible for that program. And we've had a 46% participation rate in applications in terms of people submitting applications. So I wanted to share that with the group. We'll also update those next month for you as well. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Vince.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay.
Just want to say real quick, thank you for doing the analysis for next month's meeting about doing exit surveying and finding out where kids are moving to. I think that's been a question in our minds for a long time, and I appreciate you doing that deep dive.
No problem. We'll see how it turns out. You're welcome.
Construction change orders, 406.
So this is what happens when you leave Mr. Holzer unsupervised. I overfunctioned and added this agenda item. So if you'd like me to discuss change orders again, I'm happy to. However, this is a repeat from the above section. So my apologies for this.
I think we can move on.
I will mention one thing related to construction, since I have the agenda item that I didn't mean to put in there, is the middle school drone pilots will be contributing to our construction video footage for the next month. So I'm meant to mention that during the video presentation, but I wanted to make sure I snuck that in there.
That's awesome. Okay, assessment report, part 1, Rachel Ward.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Ward, and I'm the coordinator of assessment data and accountability. And I'm going to be talking with you about some assessment data this evening. Let me make sure that I can share. Abby, I don't know that I am able to share on my new device yet.
Okay.
Could someone maybe share my presentation for me?
Sure.
Sorry.
Can you drop it in the chat and I'd be happy to do so.
I got it, Abby.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. So I'll start just this evening will be a little bit different than my typical board presentations, where it is a sit and get and look at graphs and talk about our data. And this will be a bit more of a conversation around how we use our data and our protocol. So earlier last week, I believe Dr. Jameson shared a data protocol document with you in your board notes and little homework for you. And thank you. Huge shout out to everyone that completed that. That was really, really fun. And I loved reading through your comments when we talking about this evening. The results that were in that included the MAP and EOC results from 2019, 2021, and 2022. So this is just a quick summary of what the data protocol is. So the data protocol that was shared with you was kind of an abbreviated version of this protocol that we use with administrators and teachers within the district whenever we analyze our student results. So a quick summary of what that was. The first step is to just get some clarifying questions, making sure everyone's grounded and understands what data they're looking at, what the numbers represent, what the charts are, and making sure they're familiar with and can read the data. The next step are some observations. Those are just statements like, I notice this and I wonder about this. And they all, we were trying to focus in the protocol that we use typically around equity and highlighting an observation that may point out a gap or some equity concerns that you may notice in the data. I did not include the hypothesize step or whatnot in your guys's example of the protocol, just because that is a little bit of that deeper work and knowing that background of maybe that's because we moved this unit here instead of that, and that kind of work is the conversations we would be having in our data teams. The next steps are some things we might look at. So can we compare this to attendance or to discipline data? And you actually brought up all of those things in your responses. It was pretty great. And then finally, also these action steps is the final wraparound is because of this data, based on what we see, we are going to try this or we are going to do this. And again, I did not include that in your protocol summary, just because that's the work that we'll be doing as educators and administrators. In preparation for this, using this data protocol, there's a lot of background and thoughts and things that we have to consider about when we gather this data together. And again, when I was reading through your guys' responses, some of you asked this question, is the way we displayed the data, is that showing the full picture? And is it, what about if we looked at this by grade level? And so a lot of you got on to some of these questions exactly that we had considered already. So some of the questions we think about is, what data do we need to look at? Who decides what data we're going to bring to the table? How can we display this data to make sure that we're highlighting the outcomes or the experiences that we're looking at today? What's the purpose of even looking at this data? Are we doing a progress check? Are we looking at trying to find things to celebrate? Are we trying to find areas to work on and improve? And then again, what are the data's blind spots? Whose perspectives maybe are we missing, and who needs to be at that table to make sure that we are having the full impact with our data? While we're doing the protocol, we have to stop and we have to kind of ask ourselves these questions when we are making statements and observations, because everyone brings their own lens to the data, and certain things stand out to certain people in different ways. And so we just have to be very careful that we are thinking about our assumptions, that we are making our thinking very explicit to others, and making sure that we're owning our own biases and our own observations. And then we also need to think about our impact on the data and what we can control, so that when we're talking about that hypothesizing and the action steps next, trying to think about what is it that we actually have control here, what can we do, what did we do, and really focusing our next steps in our work with these questions guiding us. So a quick summary of what you noticed and what you wondered. I thought it was, yeah, I have some notes here. Thank you, Dr. McGee. So thank you again for all of you that filled this out ahead of time and submitted it. I thoroughly enjoyed reading and highlighting your notes. Maybe that's the data dork in me. But just a quick summary of what some of the things you guys noticed. So just those of you that maybe didn't get to participate or are not familiar, we shared just a couple graphs of the math data from 2019, 2021, and 2022, district-wide overall. And so just two statements that consistently came up was a rebound or recovery in student groups from 21 to 22, with the exception of Black students, and that there was a difference between proficiency of Black students and white students. And then your wonderings were fantastic, and I have a long list of questions, but the questions that you came up with are all very similar to the types of questions that we would be asking and that we will continue to ask and explore. Anyway, I loved your wonderings and your questions about what to do next. So you wrote them, so I will not reread them to you. However, if you can go to the next slide, I was going to have you share and talk to the person sitting next to you. But now that we're on Zoom, these are just some questions and some reflections that I would like for you to think through, and because we do this whenever we do this process with staff as well. It's just, what was this process and this protocol like for you? Were there areas that you got stuck? Like in terms of, and sometimes we get stuck in doing the protocol for sure. How did it feel to have questions that directed you to look through an equity lens? We specifically called that out in the questions in the protocol. And then how does this process help us engage in productive conversations? So I don't know if it's appropriate, Dr. Jameson, but if anyone's willing to come off and answer and respond to any of these questions, I would love to hear your answers. I was hoping you could just turn and talk to a board member, but that's not quite how it's going to work on Zoom.
I'll just say I really appreciated this exercise. I think for me especially, it gave me a more structured way to think about all the things that I try to think about anyway, but like one at a time, which makes it much more easy to deal with. And I think that, I say that intentionally because it was very troubling, the patterns that we observed. And I don't think it's anything any of us accept or want to see, but we have to look at that pattern in order to be able to change it. And the other thing that I'm really glad to it was really helpful for you to describe just now the steps that were missing from our process that would be included in your process. And I'm really eager to hear what all you came up with as far as those steps, because for me, that's the critical piece, is like, how do we fix this? And I know you all are more than competent to do that. I'm just really excited to hear about your ideas there.
I'll echo that and say it was very productive to spend more time looking and re-looking through those questions and through that process, because I think we identified several things probably in looking and re-looking that we're not satisfied with. I think some things are just immediately obvious, and other things you're sort of, as you're contemplating the way that the data is presented, you're sort of uncovering other gaps that are also similarly troubling to the ones that you called out that I think we all noticed right away. And so I appreciated the process you took us through to look at it for a duration and to return to it. I know the survey said it should only take us 10 or 15 minutes, but I just kept it open for a while and turned away and came back to it because, I wanted to make sure I caught everything, which is, you want us to be engaged, and this was a really good way to do it.
Well, thank you. And again, I could tell the thoughtfulness in your responses and could really see that engagement. And it really kind of excited me in knowing that I have a board that took the time to reflect upon the data and give the responses that you did. So I really appreciate knowing that we have a data savvy board here with us. So just if you wanted more data, since all I gave you were 2 slides around math, very similar slides for ELA and for science for the district-wide are linked in board docs for you to review, as well as the state report that was given to the board, to the state board. So I didn't make that report. That was just their report from the state. So those are linked in board docs for you to review on your own if you would like. And now comes the question around what are we doing or how are we responding to this data? And so here we've bulleted quite a few of the things that we are working on this year. And I've asked Dr. McGee to just be prepared to help me with some of these responses and to provide some more context, since a lot of this is around curriculum and instruction. But we are being very intentional district-wide with using PLCs, professional learning communities, in all of our buildings. Those are already up and running and in action. And the core of that is looking at data and asking these questions. What do we want our students to learn? How will we know if they have learned it, using these assessment results or any other assessments results to know that? And then how are we going to respond when students have or have not learned what we want them to? We are going to analyze benchmark assessment results such as STAR and NWEA results. So NWEA is our new assessment that was implemented. We now have a benchmark from 7 through 12. Well, we have one K through 12, but now we go all the way up through 12th grade. So as of today, actually, we started testing. We're going to work with our new MTSS coordinator, which is a position that you helped support us to maintain here and to get, which was they're going to work with getting us aligned with our academic and behavior interventions as we respond to the data in all those PLCs in that work. And just to make sure there's really a system in place for that responding and making sure that we are looking at our interventions with a critical eye. And it's interesting, you as a board brought that up in your responses and asking if we could tie any of these results directly to interventions that we have tried and into some of our MTSS work. So that was also exciting that you're thinking the same way there. We will continue to use EduClimber to guide those data-based conversations and to support those interventions. I know Dr. Jameson is going to be following up with our administrators around their data checks and those data points. She's already scheduled meetings after every benchmarking cycle with every administrator and every building. We also are going to continue through our strategic planning process with Insight to clarify the role that data has in supporting our mission and measuring our goals and making sure that we are doing what we say we want to do. And then we will also continue to collaborate with WashU and the STEM Pact organization with our Math 314 coaches. And they have some really great data coaches and resources through WashU that we have already used and called upon. And they're really helping us analyze and look at our data. And I think that's all I have for the evening. So thank you very much.
Rachel,
and Chris, potentially, I know sometimes historically we've been shown kind of how MRH stacks up against like the state average on some of these tests. And I have consistently felt like I don't really care what the state average is. I want, our kids to be achieving at the, the best possible level for them. But it does sort of strike me that I believe that all the district employees that are on this call, believe that all our kids can achieve. And I think that it sometimes can be hard for folks who are not in schools, or maybe some folks who are in schools to believe that, consistently. And I'm actually wondering if we I don't really care about the average, but I'm wondering about the outliers. Like, do we know that there are districts in the state that have, 80% of kids that score, proficient and advanced on tests? Do we have any districts that are achieving, 90% on that sort of thing? I don't know if there is or not. I am curious to know if what does the best in Missouri look like as far as that's concerned. I mean, somewhat to just say, like, doing better than we're doing is definitely possible, right? And we may have to look outside of Missouri too to learn more about examples. But I think those could be helpful for me and potentially my other colleagues on the board, to just, again, not just talk about like, oh yeah, no child left behind, right? Like, that sounds great. Let's not do that. And we know that there's obviously that was not achieved with that program, right? So are there places where more kids are being brought along with the standards that are desirable?
Yeah, I'll jump in and just say that is definitely something we're going to probably see in our Portrait of the Graduate work, as well as our action items that come out of our strategic plan. That we will set a goal, we'll have a champion for that goal, and there will be something under sort of the umbrella of academics. And then we get to work together to define that with our steering committee of what do we want success to look like, and let's define that internally and then champion that. So we're not solely defined by outside measures.
I think the other piece that I'm hearing from you, Katie, is not necessarily comparative data, but identifying those exemplar districts that are moving the needle. Who are they and what can we learn from them? And looking out, being open to look outside of the state for those examples. So I made a note for our team to look at that as well.
And I totally agree with that. I think that's great. And in addition to just looking at districts with high scores, maybe even disaggregated, consistent high scores, also maybe looking at districts that have achieved improvements over time. I think that might be helpful to look at too, if we can find those examples.
I think a piece that's of interest to me when I think about our subgroups that are moving but not moving at the same rate as some of our other subgroups is which districts are actually doing well with students of color and which students are doing well with students with IEPs. And so I make a joke and I talk about making lemonade or Kool-Aid, whatever your favorite drink is. And if you begin to pull those items out and you look at how districts are performing, on the surface, they are doing very well. But when you disaggregate the data, they are not doing well with the same subgroup. So I think there is a lot for us still to learn, but looking at those districts who are moving those subgroups of students to see what we can learn from them as well.
And I'd like to acknowledge how vital this work is and all the benefits we have gained in growing our staff capacity and knowledge and expertise to deeply look at this and address it in a meaningful way. If we're talking about what is most urgent to us as a board and as a district, this is one of those areas. And I want to elevate our appreciation for all of the capacity we have gained just in the past couple of months with the addition of new staff and new attention and new skill building to really address this, because this is the work that we need to be doing as part of this strategic plan. And I'm really grateful for all of you in tackling it.
I concur with my colleagues. This is such important work. And one thing that stands out with some of the strategic planning work we've already been done was the word courage. And so I am, looking at the courage that everyone has had to tackle this, to acknowledge that it needs to be tackled, because knowing is half the battle. So thank you for all of the work that you have done and are continuing to do. Does anybody else have any other statements or questions? Okay.
Just as a quick note, we will continue to trickle data throughout the year. So it won't be that you're receiving one data point. The data will continue to come as assessment data is received.
Thank you. School nutrition services participation update.
Hi, so I want to give you an update on our new partnership with Chartwells and our participation numbers from breakfast and lunch for the first 10 days of school. If you look at the chart uploaded in board docs, I can get to mine. Okay, so if you look at the chart uploaded in board docs, you will see that after the first day of school, breakfast numbers at the ECC and elementary improved. Middle school and high school numbers for breakfast after the first day remain somewhat consistent in that about 15 to 20 students ate breakfast every morning. We want to really encourage students to participate in breakfast because the district is currently serving free breakfast under provision 2. Chartwell is looking at some ways to increase numbers at the middle school and high school by greeting students at the middle school and high school entrance. So they're going to try to set up some carts and have parfaits, smoothies, or different things like that, and kind of talk to the students about how important it is to eat breakfast before they start their day. And then for the lunch, you will see an increase across all 3 locations after the first couple of days, ranging in numbers between 4 to 10 more lunches served. There was kind of a increase at the elementary, then there was a dip again, and then back up to 100 as of September 6th. At the ECC, the numbers, not 100, 188, 213 for lunch. At the ECC, it was kind of consistent in a little bit. It went down maybe like August 29th and then back up August 30th. So it was kind of up and down. Some students were bringing their lunch and not eating the lunch from Chartwell. But then when they saw that the different options that Chartwell was offering, you see kids kind of trying to get lunch from Chartwell and not eat the lunch that they brought. The middle school, hamburgers were on September 1st. So that was that big increase for lunch that day. So you see at the elementary that day, it was 193 students ate, then 214 on September 1st for the hamburgers. The day before it was 193. So almost 20 more kids ate on September 1st. Middle school, high school, even for lunch, is kind of consistent. So in the hundreds, we haven't really gone above 119 yet. So these are just numbers for the first 10 days. And Chartwell today, they got some signage in here at the middle school, high school that they're posting. So they're just trying to encourage kids to just try out the different options that they're offering, and especially eat breakfast since it's free now. Trying to see the other question.
Yeah, I still don't have a good sense of if the parents in our community really know that that certainly that breakfast is free and available. You know, I know my kid is happy to eat, double breakfast, eat at home and eat at school, which I believe is happening. But that is certainly an option for all folks. I also think this is another great point about equity, that the more folks who participate in the school breakfast and the school lunch programs, the better the program is for everybody, because Chartwells has more incentive to work with work on their profit margins, which I'm sure are very thin. But that I think I'm not sure if messaging is going out through, principal letters or, messages and things like that. But I think it's probably worth some reminders to parents, at least with the younger ones. The middle school and high school students can make their own decisions, I'm sure, and they do.
I will say the messaging was a little confusing for middle school and high school because the price was off. So it's going to take a little bit of time for middle school and high schoolers to realize that meals are not $4. So I think that has been now a couple of weeks. So I think that will help. Ms. Sharp, and I don't know if you can answer this or Chris will answer this. Do we have a goal, like where we hit our projected? I remember when the whole discussion about Chartwell's was there was an opportunity for us to actually make a profit. And so where is that sweet spot where we are providing what our, everybody who needs food has food, and then where's the sweet spot where we might make some money?
So I know with the middle school, high school, we are going to start offering a la carte options. And so there are multiple options that the students will be able to choose from: drinks, chips, all healthy snacks, but they will have those options to purchase those additional items along with lunch if they so choose. So that's one, and Chris may know some other ways.
Yeah, I mean, Chartwell's has a lot of ideas. Taryn already mentioned the breakfast thing. I think we haven't had breakfast in a normal way here in 2 years. So the kids are a little bit out of habit. I do remember pre-pandemic, we did have a ton of kids down there partaking in breakfast, and it smells so good. I can't imagine more kids aren't going down there, but my account's out of money, or I'd be buying breakfast myself. So I love the idea of having those breakfast kiosks so we can catch kids as they're coming into the building. And I think it's really just messaging, like you said, Rachel, to families, and our principals chipping in, doing announcements on our whiz-bang new intercom system. Hey, breakfast is downstairs. Let's get down there and eat that. This is an important year for breakfast. It's our base year for provision too. So every breakfast will matter, so that we can continue doing that, offering this program as a district. And as far as monetary targets, I mean, I'm going to start conservative, Rachel, and I'm going to say if we can break even this year, I think we're moving in an upward trajectory. And once we get through the mid-year point, I think we'll have a pretty good sense of where our financial trajectory will be. But I tell you what, the food's good, the kids like it, and I'm very confident that before too long we will start, if nothing else, breaking even, but certainly turning a profit in the coming years. So a lot of words, but I think we'll get there.
I'll make a note. Ed actually included in the last newsletter that went out additional information indicating the appropriate price for breakfast being free, and then also the cost for lunch, and encouraging families to participate. And Kat usually adds a time where I'm eating lunch with the students at the middle or high school, and they do allow me to sit at the tables and talk with them and listen. And the lunches are actually really good. So my thought is we also may be able to bring the food truck, maybe an option to start with some of the tacos and build up some momentum there as well.
I also just want to bring back, and I could be historically wrong, but pre-COVID, my memory of middle school and high school was the buildings were open earlier, and my kids would hang out earlier, and therefore they would congregate in the cafeteria earlier. I'm not saying we have to do that, but if my memory is correct, that is when I remember breakfast being eaten by my middle school and high schoolers, was because they got to school early and then they'd hang with friends down in the cafeteria.
They actually enter through the cafeteria.
Right. And now I don't think I don't think it opens as early, which I understand, but maybe that's part of why breakfast is not as, it used to be social hour.
The buildings are, at least the high school, middle school is opening at 8:15 and school starts at 8:30.
8:25.
8:25.
There's a very narrow window if they're going to walk all the way down to the cafeteria. I think the carts are going to have an impact for sure because they don't want to take that time.
Yeah, and it was creating a supervision issue for them. So
yeah, that's what I was about to say, because I've kind of been getting on my kiddos like, hey, lunch is awesome. And they're like, but there's not much time. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's another thing. The kids all get dropped off at Quick Trip parking lot. So first thing they do is go into Quick Trip, so, and then they walk up to the school when it's time to go to class.
I'd like to make an old-fashioned suggestion. I know we have an app with the menu, but it's one more thing for parents to access. I would encourage us to reintroduce the cafeteria menu into our weekly newsletters. Just if parents are looking at one thing, it's probably that thing, and that can produce some conversation at home.
That's a great idea. I think also, Amber, that would help with kiddos that, like mine, are super picky eaters. And so may be nervous that if they don't take their own lunch, that they won't like what's being offered. But if they can see what's on the menu early on, that'll help. Any other comments or questions? Thank you so much for that. Okay, strategic planning update, Dr. Jameson.
Want to first shout out and thank the board and the COA members who were able to participate in our first strategic planning meeting on last Saturday. And we spent the majority of the time, I got an opportunity to engage in team building with the board as we think about the collective 8, but also the conversation around our core values and what we want for the district, and looking at our vision, and then also looking at where we've been and the historical piece. And I think a piece to remember is you need the history in order to know how to grow. So we spent some time kind of integrating conversation around the two, which was really nice, and to collectively do that was a great deal of fun. The next step, and I included attached to the agenda item, is the search for steering committee members. Dr. McKee actually created a nomination survey so that we can get a diverse group of individuals in, not only from a racial and social economic standpoint, but also those skills, talents, and knowledge that individuals bring to the table as we think about finances and looking at facility plans, as well as academic support and ways to support students and staff as we move forward into the next 5 years. So please stay tuned. If you are tapped and you're listening to the board meeting, please openly accept the invitation to join us in the planning for our way forward. So that's my update for strategic planning.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jameson. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on to 501 Finance, fiscal year 23 financials for August.
All right, let's get right down to it. So the items of interest here. There we go. The items of interest do a good job of explaining what's been going on. We still don't have much activity in the ledger yet, as we are still early, but we do have delinquent taxes coming in. So we do have some revenue coming in. So again, our operating funds here, budgeting right now 86% local sources, which does include food service, I might add. That's both taxpayer funded and also our paid programs. We're going to skip on to our expenditure categories. So, our biggest investment is in our people, both our students, and in order to teach those students, we spend the majority of our budgets on our salary and benefits. So here represents 78% of our budget is expended on our salary and benefits for our personnel. So we move into the bottom line here. You can see here what our beginning operating funds are, both in operating funds and debt service, as well as our bond issue funds. We are budgeting to mostly expend all of our bond funds by the end of the fiscal year. And we'll adjust that as we get a clearer picture of the month-to-month expenditures. Right now, we ended fiscal year 22 at just under 53% on the fund balance. And we are budgeting right now about 40%. We still need to add and offset our federal programs budgets and we'll adjust the local tax revenue budgets in the coming months as well. So this number will move a little bit, but it should remain somewhere right around this 40% range. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, board communications and discussion. Calendar of events. So we've got SSD Governing Council meeting September 19th, Monday. Summer concert series. Everybody, please be reminded that we are canceling the October 6th work session. So we'll just have our board meeting on the 20th, and the MSBA annual conference is November 3rd. If you haven't already signed up, get that done. Are there any other calendar events that anyone would like to mention or address? Okay. Does anyone have any committee reports that they would like to share? Okay, moving on to action items. Construction change orders. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve change orders 21, 22, and 23 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. COVID-19 mitigation measures.
I move to approve the MRH Return to Learn plan and reapprove the MRH Universal Mitigation Measures as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Executive session. Annie, would you do the honors?
I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 1, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on August 18, 2022, for the following specific reasons: personnel matters, legal matters, identifiable student matters.
Second.
Thank you. All those in, oh, actually, can I get a roll call?
Ms. Tasman Ewing,
Yes.
Ms. Withicombe,
Yes.
Ms. Goldsman,
Yes.
Langston,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Hurston Miller,
Yes. Okay, motion carries. You all in exec session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.